Welcome to Nacht Waffen Pilot with Penny Bradley. And today we're going to do something different. I've brought in my co host from Global Enlightenment Radio Network, Thomas A.J. Fry, who has his own show, Blue Collar Politics. And since he's not been to space, he's not going to be talking about space. And this is about him. Thank you for coming.
You're welcome. Yeah, it's kind of been a political season, and we got what 8 more shows and then no more. So I'm doing kind of some shows of people that I like to listen to and to get on there and got to promote the new show.
So you're going you're going to be leaving us?
No. I'm rebranding because, see, people hear the word politics and they run for the hills. They don't want to have a conversation. And because I've been in politics a lot longer than I've been doing the show, which Darrell was my very first producer over at an evil entity. I won't say their name, but so when he brought me to Global, it was an awesome switch, and I've had a lot of fun here. No, we're not going anywhere. We are just rebranding. The new show will be called Blue Collar Paradigm, and had to stay with the same BCP. So I sat down with my new co-host, Jennifer Malik, and we pounded out a name and everything, and we're going to be I'm going to be, for the first time in my life, leaving the politics, because to me, the word politics is the politics of life. It's not politics like the American government politics, but, like you were saying earlier, sometimes you have to kind of dumb stuff down. People don't get it, or they're just see the name and then they assume. And, well, that's their loss. They can't hear it because they assumed we're just political. We're not. I'm an empath and I'm clairvoyant. So, most of our talks end up around the human experience in everything that you can do, from everything that our bodies are capable of doing beyond our five senses. And because I don't make predictions. I tell people what I see, and what I see I've never missed. So
Awesome.
And
well, my community of the folks who have been in SSP or the super soldier community, we have a lot of people with what we call psionic abilities.
Right.
And they are DNA based, but they are overlapping with what the general public calls psychic skills. And what the Black Ops were looking for were clairvoyant, remote viewing, telepathy, anything that you could interact with others and know the lay of the land without people being shot.
Well, me and my daughter have done this. She's 27 now. We've been able to communicate with each other since she was 8 years old without speaking, over major distances. And for the last 2 years, we were kind of in a little fight. So we weren't talking on the phone and weren't speaking in person. But, well, that
happens.
We're identical, so we're going to butt heads. But we've always communicated with each other every day. I know what's going on in her life, whether I talk to her or not, because she just tells me. We've gotten so accustomed and comfortable with it that we even developed our own ringing system. So you're not, getting a hold of somebody when they're kind of indisposed, and you don't, there's certain times I do not want to know what my kid is doing. So
I have 3 grown sons. Actually, the youngest was born intersex, which is a whole nother ball of wax. Um, but I have a connection with them where I work very hard at not reading their thoughts, just monitoring whether they're okay or not. So,
Now, I have 4 kids. I have 3 boys and 1 girl. Now, my youngest son and my oldest daughter, no problem. The 2 middle, because they were raised mostly by my ex and not me, um, they they have no idea of their gifts. They can't communicate back. I can follow along, but I try not to invade into their. That was her whole thing of keep them away from me because I'm this freak that can see things in the future, and that I could tell what
mhm.
she was feeling without her saying anything. Now you would think a woman would like that, but she did not at all. I
um, my first husband had to touch you to be able to read you. My second husband only had to touch you once, and he left like a psychic finger in your head, and
mhm.
you could. I learned how to escape him. Um, I would literally go astral while he was trying to read me, and I would drag him along, and I would come back and leave him there.
Good one. Maybe I should have done that to my ex. She might have left me alone. It took me almost long. We were married. We were married for 2, together for 12, and took me 10 years to get rid of her.
Really.
Yeah.
I was married both times for 10. Both of them tried to kill me.
Wow.
Um, the first one, the divorce took 6 months um, because he didn't fight it. I was reasonable in what I asked for. And he had cheated on me, and I had proof. So I could have taken him to the cleaners and chose not to. I even demanded that he have visitation rights because I knew the kids would need to see him.
Yeah. Not my one ex. She's done everything she can to keep those boys away from me.
But my second husband decided he didn't want to lose me, even though he had tried to kill me because he had life insurance on me. And if we were divorced, he wouldn't get the payout.
I hate greed.
So, so he made it go 2 years in the courts, and he died last year. So I'm finally free from him. He had had that psychic finger in my head that entire time. I had been unable to remove it.
See, now I
So
don't have to touch anyone. I only have to speak with them.
when I make contact, it's through the eyes, but I don't
Maybe
have
that's
to.
why.
I that's the connection that I make is I look in your eyes, and it can be video, it can be in person, and it can be photographs.
Well, here, I'll look at the camera for you so you can see my eyes. My camera's a little bit above my head where I got new light
I
for it. So,
I've actually been making an effort to not connect with people
mm,
because I have trouble disconnecting.
mm.
So I already have ongoing telepathic interaction with a dozen people, and I would just assume there not
Oh,
be 30, 40, 50.
that's too many people in my head. I have enough time with my son and daughter.
Well, most of them are front door conversations. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Where you're just where it's like an in-person conversation. But there are a couple of them that it's deep, and the connection is actually more astral than telepathy.
Mm.
And so those people are actually a part of my life, and I see their faces when they want to interact with me. It's like this screen in front of me, and I'm seeing them, and it's, oh, hi. um, but yeah, people who didn't know that about me are going to be going, oh, shit. No wonder she refuses to read me. I also have this issue of I know I'm not the sharpest pencil in the box, as far as being the best and brightest and most gifted. And I would really prefer other people don't read me because
I can understand that.
I have enough in my head already.
See, now,
And 2 years ago, a DOD agent contacted me and asked me to talk in an agent who had gone rogue and get her to surrender herself. And when I made the contact telepathically, uh, it turns out that she had been assigned to kill me. And so I just don't do that anymore. But that does put me at a disadvantage because I'm no longer screening people.
right. See,
Um,
I can't help it. I don't care if they're my friends or not. I screen everyone that I come in contact with because I don't trust people. With being an empath, I can't be in crowds. I went to, Def Leppard's my favorite band. So me and it was my wife at the time. We went to like 6 concerts in a row. Well, I ended up in the hospital after that. Nobody could figure out why. And I didn't know I was an empath. And
you soaked up all their energies.
oh yeah, and that it made me deathly ill, and so now I know to stay away from crowds, and that's now that where the old blue collar politics studios are now, where we're at now. I'm out in my own house. My neighbor's always gone on fishing or camping trips, and the other neighbor's really cool. The guy across the street we get along with, and everyone knows, I'm an empath, to leave me the hell alone. I want to be, I have enough trouble just because me and my mom I'm handicapped. She's old. So we went in and on a house together and we do our own maintenance and stuff. I don't want her to ever go to a nursing home. She will die in this house as she wants to. And then
Respect for that.
After that, when she goes, I'll still have a place to live. So we kind of had to team up to make it. But it's a lot better this way. And I have Darrell's seen the studio. He hasn't seen it lately. Now you can see in the background, I got all my soundproofing up. And about time I get this studio done, we'll be moving into the new construction. I'm building a brand new studio off the back of the house. And go ahead.
I live in a rural part of the mountains of California, and I'm in the Sierra Nevada, north of Yosemite. Um, not as far north as Tahoe. So that gives you all a range to look at. And I used to live in town, and I was an absolute effing nervous wreck the entire time. That's why when you said you were sick after the concerts, I knew exactly what had happened to you. And so I have gradually become more and more rural. And the place I'm moving to is in the middle of nowhere. It's a couple hour drive from a large city. And it was housing for a military base.
Mm.
So it was built in the 50s. It's brick.
Gotta love a brick house.
It's soon going to be painted with EMF blocker.
Smart.
I'm targeted.
I work with someone who does investigations for TIs, and I sent her. I sent your information on to her. I don't know if she's contacted you, but she kind of comes up on the net for a while, then she disappears for a while, then she comes, and as she's because a lot of times if she's helping someone and they're in a bad way, she has to disappear too, or they come after her. So yeah. And she's I think or she's helped 20 people no longer be targeted.
Well, what happened with me was the CIA stopped shooting me because they found out they weren't killing me. that I was still on air, I was still public, and I would just complain about being shot. And so they stopped in what 2018 in April. And then in June, I was picked up by an ET group and they tried to kill me, and I somehow survived that. And there was some interference by the faction I work with in the Black Ops. And that's that was when the DoD took over trying to get rid of Penny. And so I did some alter reintegration stuff. And so in June 2019, I was picked up for a mission, accomplished the mission. On the way back, they said, oh, by the way, we don't want you reintegrating any more alters. And we know we can't kill you. We don't know why, but we figure we can make you hurt. So they destroyed my left shoulder. I still can't put that arm behind my back. I can at least use it to type with. So you don't know how much you depend on your arm. I had to relearn how to dress myself, and I still can't put on we women wear dresses with zippers in the back.
Mm-hmm.
I can't put on one of those by myself. My partner has to zip it for me. There are days when he has to brush my hair because I'm left-handed. So of course they broke that arm.
They messed up my left hand. I'm left-handed, so those two fingers don't work. On my right hand, the index fingers you can see is all mangled. I have no left leg now. I can take off my left leg and put it in front of the camera, which
you
I'm
don't
not going
have to.
I'm just learning I have to learn how to do everything again. And because the nerves are shot in my hands. See, I'm an old Marine Corps sniper.
Okay. My partner was a DoD sniper, and
most of them came from the Marines.
He wasn't military. He was a contractor.
When I was in the Marines in the late 80s, early 90s, a lot of us got pulled from the Marines, and you didn't have a choice. You were then told to go snipe for other people. And I took my earliest out. I got out because I was not doing something that, where I was forced. I was worried about them pulling me back in over what was going in the Middle East, but I got lucky and my contract ended, as they all do, 45. I mean, I don't think I'll ever be free of it completely, but I have a college education. I've got 4 degrees right now. When I'm finished, I'll have 7.
I have 1. Seriously, I have an AA in mathematics. I went to San Diego State. I came down with lupus while I was there, and that was before the ADA, so they booted my ass out. They said, you are going to be dead in 5 years, and going to school will make it go faster. We are not going, I was a pre-med student. They said, we are not going to waste a pre-med slot on someone who is going to die. Goodbye.
Guess they were wrong.
Oh, yeah, that was in 1982. I'm still here. And I still make sense when I talk. And I still get a lupus rash when I go out in the sun.
Yeah, I've gotten lucky. Most of my disabilities are physical, and they haven't. The one that isn't physical, I can deal with medication, and I've been able to continue my studies. I start back again. I had to take a 1.5 years off because of this sickness. Within 5 years, I started with the case of MRSA, and then I ended up getting 2 more staph infections, That one caused the loss of my leg. Then I've got a disease which they have no cure for called cellulitis. At any time, my fat cells will go 200 their normal size, and that's why my hands are all deformed. It's happened in both arms. They were wanting to cut fingers off, and I wouldn't let them. And that's what I get when I'm done. I have, 3 fingers that work on my left hand, my thumb and 2 fingers, and then, my right hand is, which the only reason God gave me my right arm is so I'd walk straight down the road. Because it's useless other than that. I mean, I could shift.
You are that left-handed.
I am that left-handed. I even I even play the guitar right. I play a right-handed guitar. And I don't switch anything to left, even though I'm left-handed. I just do things weird. I don't even know how to. I don't know how to describe it. I just have always done it that way. But yeah,
whatever works for you.
Exactly. Now I do shoot with a custom-made left-handed, left-chambered weapon because I got tired of getting hot shells thrown in my face. So that didn't take very long. And the Marine Corps got me my first one.
I do not admit on internet what I do or do not have as far as arms.
Oh, well, no, that's fine. Mine's obvious, so.
I'm too targeted for them to have any foreknowledge of what I may or may not have.
Good. Keep it that way. Whatever. Well, I'm just saying, whatever you got to do. Me, I'm not targeted right now, so I don't care.
I've had people targeted for friending me on Facebook. And I feel sorry for them because they have done nothing except friend me. There is no reason for it to be happening to them.
I think the main reason they haven't come after me is because I shoot back. I've had a couple.
Well, I did.
That were funny. Things that happened that shouldn't have happened the way they did, but I was cleared of any charges. Up in Ohio, they didn't have a concealed weapons permit. I was on a job. I was an independent contractor on a job, and this guy just come out of the house, started shooting at me. And yeah, and I had my daughter in the truck. So, that's it right there. I mean, I come out, I had 15.
Pure self-defense.
Yeah. And I shot him in the arm. I chose not to kill him. I just shot him. He came up, he had his pistol in his right hand, and I caught him right in the wrist with a 45
He won't
caliber.
be doing that again.
He won't be doing that which I don't know. He doesn't. Here's the funny part. They got him to the police station. He doesn't even remember doing it.
People in my community have episodes like that.
Yeah.
We have altars, and the altars do not generally share memory. So we were part of a class of people that the military refers to as dissociates. And they act like it's another race of humanity and never admit that they did this by kidnapping small children and torturing us until our minds fractured. So this happened to me when I was 4. And I have 2,200 altars, and I have reintegrated 31 of them. And to be honest, I've been scared to do any more after they broke my shoulder, because my surgeon said I had already had one surgery, and then him having to rebuild it, that if it's torn up again, they can't fix it. So I'm sitting here going, how do I reintegrate altars without pissing off the CIA enough to kill me?
Well,
and you know as well as I do, these injuries hurt.
Yes.
So I had to stop counseling people because, frankly, I was in too much pain and was too bitchy to be able to help anybody else during that time. I'm finally, the last 6 months or so, getting to where that I'm rational most of the time, and being able to talk to people privately to help them with their memory recall. And it's been, so what happens is the DoD starts sending friend requests. and photographs of this, and photographs of this same agent that they had set up to kill me. So it's like, we want you to mind connect to this person, because you can help her with her memories. And I'm like, oh fuck no, I know that woman. Yeah. Goodbye. I have nothing more to say to you. And then block. Yeah. So then they have to come at me with another profile. And that's exactly what they do. I mean, each of these agents has like 500 profiles that they can just hit me with another one.
Yeah, I can think of a lot better places to spend money than the ridiculousness that our government is willing to go to, as far as, Homeland Security or DOD or any of them, that they're just there to screw with American citizens, and it gets really old. I'm just...
My understanding of what the government actually is, based on the Black Ops that I was a part of, knowing that information and then watching the election bullshit.
Yeah.
It's like, why do we go through this mess every other year between federal elections and state elections? They get us all riled up and mad at each other every 2 years. Mm-hmm. For what? The elections don't matter. Maybe your local county government matters.
Right.
Maybe. Everything else is already decided from on high. Mm-hmm. And these people, when they're elected, they think they're going to accomplish something. And the first thing they have is this big election party where they celebrate being elected. And there's a room where every vice imaginable is available for free. And even if they don't partake, somehow their drink gets doctored. Mm-hmm. And they end up passed out on a bed that's comfortably provided. And when they wake up, there's either a naked child in the bed with them or a photograph of a naked child in bed with them beside them. And from that point on, they are owned. Mm-hmm. Now, how many of these people are actually guilty? How many are just set up? How many willingly participate? And
you'll knowing never know that number.
And knowing what is done, and this is even down to the dog catcher level of government, happens to everybody. From what I'm hearing from, what was the name of that guy, the banker who went whistleblower in Europe about the commodities and stock trades. Mm. He was talking about, at the level he was, that cannibalism was expected. This is what they do to control their people. Mm-hmm. And the majority of the population doesn't believe that I'm telling the truth. They don't think I know what I'm talking about.
Oh, I know it for a fact. I've been to an election party when my buddy got elected the county commissioner. I was because his little brother was my best friend for years. I got invited to it, and the stuff that I saw going on there, because you had the public room where everybody was at, and then us close personal friends were allowed in the back room. Well, there was yet another room where only the elected official was allowed back there. And that had, I know that room had even more. And you're right, I saw there was a bed in there when they opened the door. So, it was like, and it just blew my mind that all this stuff was going on 10 feet away from where there were 100 people drinking and partying and having a good time because they won the election and all that. And then to see all that on a county level, I was like, oh my God, that was my first time I ever realized that this shit went all the way down, every single, and with the judges, it's 10 times worse.
It was a defense attorney in my small town county. We're a small county for California. We only have 50,000 people. And he was a defense attorney, a private one at that time. And he wanted to become district attorney. And he went to our church, and I was the Sunday school teacher for his kids. Yeah, I used to go to church. I am what they call a former Christian. But
that would be me too.
We talked one day in the church office because I basically functioned as the priest assistant. I was in the Episcopal Church, not the Roman Catholic. And I was a lay reader and basically his assistant. And I was in a program to become a deacon. The position is called postulant for holy orders, which sounds so much cooler than it really was. But it was, we spent this afternoon because he was in a situation where people had been condemning him for defending a murderer, a nationally known murderer. And
everyone is entitled to the best possible defense that they can afford.
Exactly. I told him that we may not have the best that could be, but this is the best that we have, and it relies on both attorneys doing the best they can.
Right. And if they get any less, then I have no respect for those that don't. Whether you're defending whether you knew he did it or not, it's your job to try to make sure to test the law to make sure that he gets as little as possible. And it's the prosecutors to put him away for life. And, and our judicial system, although it is hook and crook, is still the best in the world. It's the most fairest in the world, and it has nothing to do with you or your crime or anything else. The decisions are all politically biased.
It's money influences a lot of it too.
Yeah.
And he was the one who told me about the post-election parties. He was the one who told me how things went from the lower levels to the higher levels, how much worse the crime was that they had documented that you had supposedly done. And that if you wanted to be able to serve the community, you had to tolerate the blackmail. And that, so he was basically using me as a confessor, even though I wasn't legally in that position. So I told him that the best he could do was the best he could do, and that when it got to a level he couldn't live with what they accused him of, that he was going to have to decide what he wanted to do. And that I wasn't going to make that choice for him. Because as a defense attorney, he was doing a lot of good, because a lot of people were not fairly accused.
Right.
We had a sheriff here who would accuse you based on your reputation or whether or not he thought you were a public nuisance
Oh, that
rather,
happens everywhere.
rather than whether or not you actually committed the crime. So there were a lot of false accusations, and it was very easy to be railroaded into prison long term and very difficult to prove your innocence. So,
Yeah, I've always said you're guilty till you prove yourself innocent.
that's not the way our system is supposed to be, but that is, in fact, how it works.
Yeah, because I even got railroaded in. They for some reason I don't. Being poor in this country, by the way, is a crime.
I know that. I have
And
managed to never be arrested,
oh
ever.
no,
Not once.
I got
And
arrested for it, charged with a felony, and they made it stick. The non-payment of child support over the kid I had custody of. They couldn't get me
how
on
did they
anything.
do? How did they do that?
I can show you the transcripts from the court. Me and several attorneys have read it, and we still don't understand how they come to that conclusion. But
If you have the kid in your custody and the kid's alive and be housed and clothed and all that, how the hell did they say non-support for that?
because back then the way the law was written, see, you're female, you'll never experience this, but being a male back then in the late 80s, men didn't get custody of kids, period. They always gave
They
it
did in California.
well, in Ohio they didn't. Okay, and it always went to the female. I am the first person in the state of Ohio to win custody of my child when the other children in the home were not removed by the state. Okay. So I won that custody. And well, then I got hurt. So I ran out of money. Well, I was on welfare. Well, if you're on welfare in Ohio and you have a child, you have to pay child support. It's a law. Now, it doesn't matter who has, I was the very first one that had custody of my kid, so they didn't know what to do with me. So they hem-hauled around, and it took them 8 years to charge me with it. I just got the case cleared like 5 or 6 years ago. I got my voting rights back. I got my concealed weapons permit back, which were the two most important things to me, but it's still on my record as I'm a convicted felon because I wouldn't give them my welfare check for child support. They wanted their fees that they could have taken from that. And I told them that's stupid. I'm not giving you my welfare check when that's all I have to survive on, to pay my rent with and everything else. I'm not putting my kid out on the streets. But that's how messed up this system is. So I've been fighting this the rest of my, and I still have another 10 grand I got to pay to get rid of the felony because it's the only thing on my record that from the beginning to the end.
Wow.
So
well, my kid's dad went through and he would literally leave the country. And I had to establish where he was and go to court to attach his wages. And by the time I would make the connections and go to court, he would have moved. He had this circuit he did between Thailand, Southern California, and Lubbock, Texas.
mm-hmm.
And at the time, Texas was the black hole of child support. Now, I had 3 kids who were medication dependent, and the youngest was in and out of the hospital because of the disease. So I had trouble working and making enough money to support them. So even when I was working full time, because of how much money I had to put out for childcare, I was still on aid.
Mm-hmm.
Because in California, they'll give you partial aid. And so, because I was on any aid, the district attorney's office demanded that I cooperate. So every time I had a new address on him, I would turn it in. And I was doing the best I could to keep the whole world happy. And in the meantime, I'm telling him, your kids really need to see you. So it was like 15 years of that. And then one day he says, "Oh, my doctor says I'm schizophrenic and I'm on drugs and I'm on SSI, so you can't take my check anymore." I'm like, "Okay."
Wow.
The DA's office had to write off $45,000 that he supposedly owed me, but they were going to take it all. So,
Wow. And I thought I had it bad.
so
Mine was just, it wasn't, wow.
he had originally been supposed to pay $150 a month per child, which was quite a bit of money in 1986. 450 was a lot, and I knew that, and I knew I was having a tough time supporting them and paying for childcare while I went to work. So it was, you know, when you have kids that can go into adrenal shock with 30 minutes warning, and you have a babysitter who's willing to have them and call you from work, and then you have to make arrangements for the kid to go to the hospital, so then you get fired from your job because you had to leave.
Yeah.
And the guy had the money to go to Thailand.
Yeah.
You know, this was sheer gall.
Yeah. So, when I had my body shop, I had a couple of guys working for me that one of them, he had custody of his kids. So there was a lot of times he had to leave to go take care of his kids. I told him, I said, don't you ever worry about it. You will never have to look for a job. Whatever times you have to leave, we went and hired someone to cover for what he was doing when he had to go. But I'll be damned if knowing what I went through with my kid, I wasn't going to tell one of the guys that was making me money so I could pay, make sure my kid went to college and everything else. I wasn't going to take that away. And that's good wages in a body shop. So,
Yeah, it is.
and he, just by not being there, he took a hard enough hit on his paycheck. So all my guys were, do you know how flat rate works?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, with this flat rate, he would average about 80 hours in a 40-hour week. Well, when he had to go, he'd have weeks at a time where he was gone every other day for, a week or two. And then he'd have a 20-hour paycheck for 2 weeks. You can't survive on that.
No,
So
you
we
can't.
always got together and we decided that to give him a bonus every time he had to deal with this. Every day he couldn't come to work, I automatically put $100 in his paycheck. And we never told him. We just, when he got his check, he's like, I think you overpaid me. I says, well, I'm glad you came and told me that, but no, we didn't overpay you. We're going to, every time you have to go take care of your child because you were willing to risk your job to do it, and I know what that's like, we've decided that the company's going to pay you $100 every day you're gone. Please don't take advantage of it, because if I'm start writing you checks where it's all that, then I'll know you're taking. But as long as you're not taking advantage of it, I got no problem helping you out. And when I
That's
sold
cool.
the body shop, I sold it to the manager for $1 because the state was coming after me again. And I
Oh
wasn't
no.
going to have those. Yeah, I wasn't having those guys lose their jobs. So I had to sell what I built from nothing up to, we were doing $10 million a year in business. And
Wow.
I sold it to my manager for $1 and walked away from it because they wanted to shut the place down and part it all out. Well, I'd spent years building that up. And
Yeah.
I wasn't going to be the person to cause a bunch of people their paychecks. I just wasn't that greedy. And I certainly wasn't going to give the money to the state. They'd kiss my ass. So that pissed them off real bad because we did it legally. I went through the attorney, the whole 9 yards, and we had this whole thing set up. I put $1 out of my wallet on my attorney's desk. I had my manager with me. And then I couldn't say anything to him. We were recording everything that was going on so we could prove it later. So I put the $1 on his desk and I went and sat down. I didn't say another word. And he said, Jim, come here. He says, I want you to pick up that $1 and sign that paper. He goes, what for? He said, I can't tell you what for, but you have to pick up that $1 and sign that paper. So he picked up the $1, signed the paper. He says, okay, Payless Auto Body's yours. Have a nice day. And then I left and he explained to him what happened after that. But he had to accept it without knowing what it was, or then that would have been, a felony of me trying to sell a business to get out of paying something through the state. So,
oh man,
it was really weird how you had to handle it, but it got handled. It's still going today. I still talk to my guys every once in a while. They've, now that I'm cleared of all this, he said, I'll give it back to you. I says, no, I sold it to you. You've got it going. Times are a little tough down here, but I'll get through. I always do. So I got a security company now that's things are starting to pick up. My radio show's doing better. We broadcast to 9 different things when I'm on. I mean, we're on Spreaker, Anchor, D Live, Twitch, all of them, Twitter, Periscope. And then what isn't live, we post after on the show. And that's, I guess just being around from the beginning till now, I've just developed that way. And I like being here at GERN. I really do. I mean, it's one of the better, I think it's one of the top 3 networks in the country.
Well, I was frustrated one day, and Ode and I were friends on Facebook. And I was frustrated one day because I had been totally dissed by a interviewer. And Odin and I talked about it. I was venting. And he said, well, I can give you a slot on my network. I'm like, really? How much is it going to cost me? Oh, nothing.
Light bulb goes off.
So it's like, this is my first experience with internet radio. I had no idea what I was doing. I had been doing a YouTube podcast that was a couple of times a month. I'd do a chat with a friend. And so it wasn't that I was actually interviewing anybody. I was more or less bullshitting with friends about related topics. And right. then I would put the video on my YouTube. And I only started doing that because YouTube sent me this email saying, if you don't start posting something, we're going to delete your account. And I'm like, what? I had a playlist of all the interviews I had done, so that people could come to my channel and they could watch all the interviews I'd done. And I had linked to the other people's stuff. I'm not making money off of this. My thing is, okay, I'm going to be blunt. I'm at war with the CIA. They kidnapped me when I was 4 years old, and they fucked over my life. So, as far as I'm concerned, they are the most evil thing on the planet. And I've done a hell of a lot of research. And the only thing that comes close are the Jesuits. Even the Illuminati are not as bad as the CIA. So, They are the most evil thing on this planet. And my goal is to have them at least reined in, if not disbanded entirely, and their leadership put in prison for the rest of their lives.
You know that's why JFK was shot.
Yes.
He was making the announcement to disband the CIA the next day. When he got back from Texas, he was going to disband the CIA.
Well, now you know why I'm targeted.
Hmm.
Step number one is contact your Congress critter and demand that the CIA be investigated for trafficking children.
Oh, well,
Because what they took for the black ops, the dissociates, we're just a drop in the bucket.
oh, I know.
And
People in this country don't realize without the CIA, there'd be no drugs in this country either. Because their
yeah,
war on drugs was only to stop the competition that if you paid your bribes to the CIA, you were allowed to bring your drugs in. If you didn't pay your monthly dues, then you got listed and the DEA found out about it. And then you got shut down from them and they confiscated everything. And,
well,
but
that was why Stu Webb got killed. They listed it as a suicide, but the only suicide was that he printed the truth.
yeah, yeah, that was your crime. You told the truth. And I've known of a couple people that got listed. One guy got shot in the back of the head twice and got listed as a suicide.
I've seen bankers that had multiple nails from a nail gun in their head, and that was listed as a suicide.
Yeah.
One I can see, but more than that,
All right,
uh,
maybe two. Just the reaction because I have an air nail gun. Once you pull that trigger, you could get 2 or 3 nails in before you're actually dead because just the bouncing will get it to fire again a couple of times. But some of the cases, see, I'm a digital forensic technician, so I work around the forensics lab in the state of Florida, and they have showed me pictures that I don't want to see because I would have to verify the picture with the metadata and all that, preparing it for court. And I've helped the regular forensic lab with some of their photos. And they had one. It was a suicide. He had 16 penny nails in his right temple. And yeah, well, that's impossible. Maybe
it is
three,
impossible.
maybe 3, maybe 4, depending on, but you would have to hold it with the gun above your head, not below your head, is the only way because there's a trigger point that causes the next one to come out, gives you a rapid fire. So if it's on top of your head, yes, that's possible. Maybe 6, but you really have to want to die because that first one's going to hurt. Now, it only
Oh,
take
yeah.
about 3 seconds to fire 6 of them. But if you're not holding that the exact certain way to where you couldn't pull the trigger for 6, but you could pull for the trigger for 1, maybe 2, and then the rest would just self fire because of the way that system works. Um, so those I've kind of left those alone now because it's such a gray area on what's provable and what isn't, the direction and all. It's the surrounding facts that usually prove the main fact,
Yeah.
and the surrounding facts, it's kind of hard to when it's too hard to determine what actually happened without a camera view of outside, without a camera pointing at it to know whether it was suicide or someone killed him. It's that close. Um,
Wow.
but like gunshots in the back of the head, once you fire one, you're not firing a second one. No matter where the gun is or how you're holding it or whatever, you need help in order to get that second round off. Um,
Yeah.
there was, but yeah, I'm not going to go into it because they get pretty gross on the damage that a bullet can do to the human body, especially when it's held that close. Um,
Yeah. I had an acquaintance in the 80s who had gotten really upset about something and had tried to kill himself and shot himself through the temple. And he got the wrong angle, and all he accomplished was blinding himself.
Oh, that would suck.
So, yeah.
I think for the most part, most Americans have faced it at one time or another. At least the thought was there, because sometimes I don't know if anywhere in the world you can have a normal existence.
Not anymore, no.
And I've often thought many times about leaving this country and going somewhere else um where it'd be much better. But the places where it is better, you can't get in unless you're, multi-millionaire. New Zealand's a great place to live, but you better come loaded for bear in the cash department or you're not getting in there. Um,
I did some looking into it when I first realized how targeted I was. And most of the places that I could immigrate without having to learn another language
right.
required that I have $250,000 in the bank and that I be under the age of 50. Well, I'm 65. So I had a lot of young friends in their 30s and 40s say, oh, you can come here, you can come here, you can come here. And then I checked into their laws. No, I can't come there. I can come there to visit, but if I were going to immigrate, it would require someone sponsor me and promise to make sure I was not a drain on their tax base.
Mm-hmm.
And all of these people who say you can come here, none of them wanted to sign for me.
Oh, ain't that great when your friends like you're the one that told me to come there and now you don't want to sponsor. Okay, so
Yeah, I get it. I get it. You want me to come on my own dime and all this. And I'm going to be leaving California in January, and I have never lived anywhere else.
you'll find it's a lot easier than California is one of the hardest states to live in as far as now they have the most programs for helping needy people out. Like Florida doesn't collect state taxes, so there is no welfare program in Florida. Um, I'm
Okay.
on Social Security and I'm trying to get my business built back up again so I can leave Social Security and become a productive member of society. But every time I think I'm ready, something else hits me and I lose another functioning body part. And it's starting to get really difficult now.
I,
It's hard
I
to balance.
understand that one. I have been completely disabled and come back 4 times in 30 years. And the last time, the fifth time, I couldn't come back.
Hmm.
So I am also on Social Security disability. And I can't switch to retirement until I'm 67 because of that gap thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's what triggered me moving was my landlady raised the rent to more than my SSDI check.
Oh, wow.
I live with a man. He's a wonderful man. And together we pay the bills. And he is why I'm not homeless. And he's going to be 72 next month. And he's got some early stages of some serious problems. And I'm looking at this and going, you know, if I lose him, I'm going to be homeless. And there's not going to be a damn thing I can do about it. And I have three grown sons. And because of California's cost of living, they are unable to help me even if they wanted to.
Right.
And so I'm looking at mom has to be responsible for herself again. And I had friends who are literally buying a rental home for me.
Oh, you can't beat that.
And so I'm like, you guys do know I'm old. Oh, yeah. The man is just close to my age, and the wife is in her 50s or just turned 50. So she's been taking care of her grandparents, and she says, we understand what old is. And I go, okay, you know, I can still interact with the world in a lot of important ways, but in other ways, I'm pretty damned helpless. You know, and this shoulder injury didn't help that. And she
Right.
says, I understand. And she says, we're going to make sure you're within 5 blocks of us. So if there's a problem, you can just call. I'm like, okay. So I am not moving into a place without support.
Right.
So
Well, that's
it's
what me and mom did, just to, that way it's our own family taking care of our own. You know,
yeah,
it'll be hard when she's not around because there are things I can't do that. But I lived by myself for 5 years before this. I got through it. It wasn't the prettiest, but you know,
yeah,
I got through it. But I got to get my degrees done, and once I get them done, then I'll get back to where I'm making plenty of money again to to support myself and keep the house going and have all that. And plus, I'm hoping to have it paid off, if not paid off completely, mostly paid off by the time I'm done with school. So I'm taking
that'll
in,
help.
I'm getting every student loan I can and putting that on the house. And that way, when I'm done with school, because I'm handicapped, I don't, and I was grandfathered in because of when I started, I don't have to pay for it, that they'll help me. So I'm going to use that to pay at least 80% of the house off, so that way if I have to, I can restructure the mortgage. And if I only owe 20 grand, I bounce that back out to 20 years, then my payment will be $100 a month.
Yeah. Part of the problem here is we had this thing, oh geez, back in the 70s called Proposition 13 that put limits on how much the state and county could raise the property taxes
Mm-hmm.
on homes that were owned, on actually on any property that was owned. So if you owned your home at the time of Proposition 13, they could not raise your taxes more than I believe it was 5% a year or something. It was minuscule compared to how much they were raising everybody else.
Right.
And it created a situation where the greedy bastards in government are now pushing for the repeal of that. And because businesses are not hiring people and there are a lot of expenses going out to take care of the unemployed, they put through this Proposition 15 this time that was supposed to repeal Proposition 13 on businesses. And I'm looking at this and going, we're down to 20% of the businesses that we had when a
Mm-hmm.
year ago when this crap, before this crap started. And you're going to put extra taxes on them as a way of partially repealing Proposition 13. And then you're going to say, well, we're going to do it to regular people too. And I'm like, oh no, oh, hell no, this ain't going to go. Um, California has gasoline prices over $3 a gallon, and $2.50 of it are state taxes. And they charge sales tax on top of that.
See, down here in Florida, it's $1.72 for
So
a gallon of gas.
if you have to come to California for any reason, keep that in mind. We
Oh
have
no,
the
I would be.
California, DC, and New York City have the most expensive gasoline in the entire country.
Mm-hmm.
I took a cross country trip in 2016, just me and my Chevy Blazer with California plates. And I went across I-80 to US 30 and went through Ohio. And I ended up in Pittsburgh and then DC and then to a friend's house in Greenville, South Carolina. And I stayed with her for several weeks. And then I headed back through the backside, um, Tennessee and Missouri and that long stretch along Kansas
Mm-hmm.
and into Denver, where I stayed with a cousin who lives in Colorado. And then I came home, I-80. And then, God help me, I came home down 49. It was the Highway 49 was the worst road the whole trip. California literally paved the old wagon trail between the gold rush towns. And
Oh really?
that's Highway 49. Oh yeah, you have switchbacks and and hairpin curves and whole miles and miles and miles of trees that are touching the top of your car and all kinds of crap. It's a beautiful drive if you're not in a hurry.
Yeah. That's I lived in Denver for 5 years, and that was anything west of Denver was that way. You get up in the mountain roads, and the washboard it gets so bad, you'd be going down a road. Your tires are turned almost all the way to the left. The rear of the cars, you can almost see the bumper, and you're going down the road, and you're going. The washboards are so bad, you're literally going down the road sideways.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've
that,
driven on
that's
those
what it's
roads.
like. That's what it's like where I live. And if you go more than 40 miles an hour, you go off the edge because we don't have those
Guardrails.
guardrails, and they're not real good about fixing the potholes. And whenever it's snow season, they just close the roads. And God help you if you live up there, you better have a snowmobile.
See, now I wouldn't, when I think about it, I would like to, because I haven't been there. I haven't been to Southern South America, and I have a friend of mine that lives in South Africa, and he tells me South Africa is beautiful.
It,
Um, the
the
taxes are
pictures it
really,
is.
the taxes are ridiculously low. It is clean. It is not trashed. It is nowhere near the Blood Diamond fight. He said it's not like Africa like you think or see on the news. It's very nice down there, and there's a lot of large communities that the government does not mess with at all. They live out there on their own. They're completely self-sufficient, and that interests me. I It's like,
Yeah,
yeah.
my county has two militia camps that the local county leaves alone. The sheriff doesn't even go in.
Yeah, I heard you guys got more than two out there.
We
There's
got two in my county.
Oh,
Um, yeah, one's Christian and the other one's Satanist, and the locals leave both of them alone completely. And
and
when the guys come into town wearing their various colored fatigues and camos and full body armor, and they look like a SWAT team, we just say, hello, sir, and walk past.
Yeah, and unfortunately there are a lot of them. The ones you really got to worry about are the Muslim ones, and they're in Pennsylvania, and they've moved in next to the Amish. So
There's a bunch of those in Nevada too.
yeah,
Um, now, where I live, we're considered backwards by the rest of the state.
mm,
And we did have the single most conservative congressman in the entire country and kept reelecting him. And I have not yet seen if he won or not.
well, if you're
um,
leaving anyway.
he's popular. Um, but for people who think that California is all Democrat, I can tell you that my county bleeds red. But we have lost a lot of people as the taxes go up. And I really think that was part of the intent of the tax structure. My county does not own the water rights here. San Francisco does. And so we are still under water rationing. We are allowed 50 gallons of water per day per person. That means you can shower, or you can do dishes, or you can do laundry. You can't do all three the same day.
Wow.
And yeah,
No,
and
here I can take my shovel, dig down. Before I hit 2 feet, I will have struck water where I live in Florida and walk out my backyard. I can't do it in the front because my backyard's about 10 feet lower than my front. But in the backyard, I can take a spade, dig down. Before I hit 2 feet, water will start coming up.
wow.
We have more fresh water in the state of Florida than the rest of the country combined.
Well, it's to the point where between the cost of living, the water rationing, and the sheer stupidity in Sacramento, our state capital, we have done petitions to recall Newsom 3 times. And when he declared the state of emergency over the bug, he decided that that meant he was dictator and no longer had to deal with the legislature. And the courts just now, finally last week, decided that he was wrong. So hopefully some of the crap he's pulled will be reversed through that. But we're still stuck with him for 2 years because the Secretary of State will not accept the petitions against him. We had plenty of signatures to get it on the ballot to recall him. And yes, we have recalled governors before. We recalled Governor Gray Davis. That's how Arnold Schwarzenegger became our governor. So we don't sit back and take tyranny lightly. So there have been court cases. I know the rest of the country thinks that we're a bunch of pushover liberals, and the real difference here is that we're more tolerant of each other than the rest of the country is, because nobody has a majority. So we know we have to get along with you.
Yeah, they ain't learned that in Washington yet.
No. So that's the thing in California that really makes us different is we know we have to live with that neighbor we don't like.
See, we get that down here in Florida too, because Florida is such a long. We're kind of similar in California in that way. Florida has 842 miles of beaches.
Hmm.
Okay, so salt life down here rules, and that's why we're surrounded, and we have our state is almost as long as California.
Yeah.
Um,
We're 750 miles long.
we're a little over 500 if you go from the tip down, but there's no
Hmm.
other, Texas and Alaska, but there's probably four or five of us that are, over 400 plus 400 miles long.
Yeah.
Well, when you're that long and you're in two different time zones in your own state, then you
Yeah.
have to get along because you're not always, I mean, we had Governor Scott down here. A lot of people like Scott. When he won, he'd win with 70% of the vote. But when
Hmm.
he started going off the rails towards the end, I'm glad they got rid of him because I liked him in the beginning, but I didn't like some of the things he did when he knew he wasn't coming back in again.
Yeah.
And I didn't like that. Now we have a good governor, and our election, normally it's Florida that screws up the national elections. And
Yeah.
they're always well, they implemented an ID system that they use the barcode on the ID. Our elections went so perfectly smooth, they were done before 8 p.m. That's how
Wow.
smooth every vote counted, the mail-ins, the all the different ways, because we use one voting system across the state. We don't change it, and you have to show your ID. And they check everything now after that last fiasco in 16 with having over 100,000 dead people vote. They
Yeah.
got rid of all the people. If you were not alive, you were kicked off the registry and all that. They
Good.
straightened it out, and it was a joy going to vote. I handed my ID, which I think you're an American. You should have to show an ID when you got to get an ID to buy a damn beer. You got to show an ID to buy a pack of cigarettes. Why not something as important as voting? You should have to show your ID. And I like that. And it wasn't a big deal. I didn't get upset when they asked for your ID. I like it now. And we had a clean vote and there wasn't a problem. And we made our decision, which was basically 50-50. And I knew that's how it would be.
Yeah.
And
I knew it was going to be 50-50. I my Facebook is not an echo chamber. Okay. I have worked very hard to maintain it as not an echo chamber. I have people from the far left to the far right. And my only rule is you don't kill each other on my wall.
right.
You know, you be polite. And so we get a lot of interaction. And I knew from both sides that this was going to be a very, very, very close election and that it was going to be disputed.
Oh yeah,
Um,
it didn't matter who won and who lost. The loser was going to dispute the victor. That's just the way it was going to happen.
well, I have friends who are very emotionally invested in Q right from the beginning. They're not new at it. It's been 2 years of them shoving Q down my throat.
Hmm.
And they have made it into a cult religion. And there is no way that those people are going to take this loss easily.
Yeah.
So now I say this loss because the media says he lost. But the truth of the matter is he hasn't yet. Not
Right.
until not until
The
the
15th of next
electoral
month.
the
Yeah.
15th of next month with the electoral college.
Mm.
That when you voted on election day, you voted for a elector,
Mm-hmm.
and that elector hasn't voted yet.
Mm-hmm.
And last time there were electors that changed their votes.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't know what's going to happen until after that.
Right. And I kept trying to tell that, and that's part of the reason why we're dropping the blue collar politics name, because until this year, prior to this year, man, there were great political discussions on my show, and I've
Mhm.
never hosted a show with an argument. I won't allow it. I want you to disagree with me, because it's, if we all agreed on everything, one, nothing would get accomplished, and two, you got to have people bring in new ideas and stuff like that, and you got to be able to listen to them. I've always been a big believer in the peaceful transfer of power, and
Mhm.
um,
Definitely.
that has not been followed very well for the past four votes, and it I don't know. I really don't. I don't even want to talk about the elections anymore. It pisses me off so bad of how it was handled, and you know, but it doesn't surprise how it came out doesn't surprise me one bit. Um,
Well,
Also,
I
everyone.
want to ask your opinion about something.
Hmm,
A friend of mine in Canada pointed out to me last May that March 20th, Trump actually declared martial law. And if you go to the White House page, you'll find all of the executive orders where he implemented it. So my next question is, if we are in a state of emergency with martial law declared, and the head of FEMA is actually in charge of the country per law,
hmm.
well, Trump got rid of the head of FEMA and made himself that. So
Technically,
I'd like your opinion on that one.
well, legally, um, he can't do the job, but he has to appoint someone in charge of FEMA. The president can only be as a stopgap in when you get rid of the director of FEMA or the director of like the CDC, or all the departments are the same. So
CDC is not a government agency. It's a private foundation.
okay, but the all right, let me rephrase that. It is highly influenced by who is president and who is in charge over there, and
Yeah.
that's why I've always called it that, because to me it's every president's been, I mean, the guru in charge over there has been, it's always been presidential suggestion, maybe you could say
Okay.
it, but anyway, all the departments, okay, and IRS, they're a government agency, right?
IRS is a
Yeah,
government agency, but the Federal Reserve is not.
right. No, I know the Federal Reserve is not. um
So
they're actually a worldwide organization, but yes. um
I
no,
understand
he
they are answerable to the Crown Corporation.
um well, yeah, it depends on how far up you want to count. Because
I've been tracking some of that stuff.
yeah, I don't, there ain't enough time left in the show for me to go through and explain the entire format. But basically, he can only put himself in charge of for no more than six, I think it's 180 days, 6 months. He has to legally put someone else in charge, because the position is so powerful and it's in line of succession to be president. So that would, otherwise it would be tantamount to a president claiming himself to be a dictator, and there'd be no checks and balances. But every system in our government is supposed to have a check or balance by one of the other systems. So anything that can happen in the executive, then the legislative and the judicial branch would also be able to have their input on that very fact. So but Trump putting himself in charge of FEMA, after 180 days, it would go to whoever the assistant director would automatically get the position, because the leader of FEMA is considered in the line of succession. It may be far down, but any position that has that ability, everybody from the Secretary of State to the head of the Senate, the head of the Congress, anybody that's in that line, and it goes like 200 deep.
I wasn't aware of more than like 3 of them.
Oh no, it goes.
I knew it was Vice
deep.
President, then Speaker of the House, and then Secretary of State.
No, I'll get you the list. I don't want to sit here and say them because I haven't looked at it in a long time, so I don't remember the order. But the reason it goes down so deep is you're old enough. You'd remember the nuclear scare.
Yeah.
Okay, that's when it was developed. They developed the shadow government that does everything that the regular government does, only they do it in secret. And that's if the regular government gets wiped off the map, we instantly got other people. But all those positions are temporary. They're only they go in 180-day segments until we can have another election to get elected officials back in the government. That's the way they're supposed to. It's the way their charter says they're supposed to work. But we all know it doesn't work that way anymore. But that's the way it's supposed to work. So a lot of these things that are the way we've set them up as an American country, they've been quietly changed over the years. And we'd be voting on this, but in the fine print, only written on a thing that only congressmen can see, the top secret parts of every bill that goes out in front that America votes on, and don't realize they're not just voting on what is in front of them. There is a top secret bill allowed to be attached to each vote that then gets voted on, but they don't have to tell you what they're doing and what direction it goes. But when you vote on it, you're voting for it. So they change a lot of stuff behind the scenes and don't let us know that that's how they can get away with taxing a dollar bill 5 different ways. So you're not paying just taxes one time. You're paying every dollar that you have, you pay taxes on that dollar 5 times. At least. And that's not
more than that if you live in California.
Well, one thing down here in Florida is we don't have the state tax, which is awesome. All right. First of all, it proves you don't need a state tax for a state to survive. And second of all, half our population is snowbirds anyway. Yeah. So half our population, and this was the first voting cycle that they were not allowed to vote in Florida because they told them all, forget it. You are not voting twice in this. I'm telling you, Florida straightened out the election. Our elections are actually fair. It's awesome. Weird. I know. They should automatically just move this to a national thing. It worked. We can't get our school curriculum right, but damn it, we know how to vote right now.
My county has paper ballots, and they mailed them out to everyone who was registered to vote, and you had to show your license when you registered, your ID. And we were supposed to have the smart ID this year, but because of the bug, it was postponed. So I'm going to have to come up with records, because it's not just your birth certificate and your last driver's license and proof of where you live. No, you have to come up with, every time you were married, you have to have the license, and you have to have the divorce papers, all of it. And I've been married twice. So I have to go back and get copies of all of that paperwork and take it into DMV together. Oh shit, I've got to do that before I move. Because it's some federal law that we all have to have that smart ID by such and such date.
Oh. I don't know if I have it yet or not. I've got the new driver's license, but I didn't pay
That
attention.
would that would be it. It's going to be required to travel on the bus, the train, or airplanes.
Good.
Well, I'm still going to be doing one conference a year,
Hmm.
maybe two if they pay
I missed
part of it.
out. I was going to speak at a conference this year. I didn't get to do that because of the bug. We were going to take BCP to 5 Comic-Cons, and we were going to be doing the show live Saturday night right from the Comic-Cons. That got blown out
That
when
would have
they,
been
yeah,
fun.
yeah. We were going to invite all the hosts. The idea was that we're taking my studio, because my studio is packable in my trailer, pack it in my trailer, take it to a Comic-Con. Darrell and Katie would come down, help me set up, and then we'd have as many hosts as wanted to come, and you could broadcast your show live from the Comic-Con from my portable studio, which is pretty cool. I mean, it fills a 7 by 16 by 8 foot high trailer. It fills it.
Wow.
So yeah, I've not only do I not make any money, I've got close to $25,000 invested into the studio. But to
Gee, I just had to buy a new $100 camera. The
believe it
last,
or not, my favorite camera, now I got 5 of them here, and I got some that mount on tripods and everything. In fact, you can see the one right. That's one of my cameras, but the one I use, it's just a Logitech 920, best webcam on the market. It shows, the most perfect picture and clear picture that I've ever seen. Um, I like it a lot, and I have a couple HPs and other webcams. But
mine is a Keo.
oh, there's so many brands out now I'm not familiar with. But it
Um,
looks like you got nice clear pictures. So,
yeah, my next door neighbor does gamer builds.
mm,
And my computer that was like 15 years old decided it was no longer going to go online. We know how this goes, right?
yes.
And so my next door neighbor built me a computer. And I'm going to see if I can show you. It's a gamer motherboard,
Nice.
and it's got a light show in it. It changes colors, and it has 32 gig RAM, and it has 2 terabytes of storage.
Hmm.
So it should last me a while. It's running on Windows 10. Um,
Well, then I won't throw my stats at you because I built my own computers, and my slowest one has 64 gigabyte of RAM.
awesome.
And because I produce, broadcast, and do everything
Yeah,
on my own, and I was doing that before. Um, you have to have, a high end. Now your computer will run just about every program I have except for one. That's a nice computer. That should last you at least 10 years before you.
that's what I was hoping, was that it would be usable for longer, because the one I was using had 2 gig RAM.
Oh, the only
And
reason I say it might not last 10 years would be good because the technologies is advancing. My other computer is a Ryzen. That has 128 gigabyte of RAM, and it has 24 separate hard drives at 8 terabyte is the smallest hard drive I have. But I also run my business from my computers, and I'm in
yeah,
the security business. So every one of my clients has at least 8 to 16 cameras, and I have to be able to look at them all at the same time, and I can't have them flickering. So that requires a pretty powerful computer. So I made
yeah,
my studio dual purpose.
Yeah, it also requires a decent internet provider. And I'm having issues with internet service providers. Um, AT&T has not maintained their wires in my community, and I'm on one of the few that they were selling as high speed, and it would go out from 2 to 18 hours a day every single day.
Oh crap! That sounds like it's out more than it's on.
And so last year in December, we switched to CalNet. Well, you knew that PG&E has been turning off the power here
Mm-hmm.
because of fire danger,
Yeah.
because they were supposed to put their wiring underground and they failed to do so. They spent the money lobbying the legislature instead of fixing the wires. So now, when there's high winds, they shut off the power to everybody. Well, the last time they did, they damaged something at CalNet. And
Well, you can't
so,
keep shutting off the power to servers and have them survive. They can't take that. A
yeah,
server is designed to be turned on and left on forever. It's not
yeah,
even you can just about change a motherboard in a server without powering it down. I mean, they are,
yeah.
because I have servers here at the house. I have a rack of them. And
Well, the internet service provider, CalNet, they were spotty during the time that PG&E had the power off, which means they were running a generator. And I was not getting enough bandwidth to even go on Facebook. Normally, you can go on Facebook no matter what
right.
because they've made it where you can connect. But no, I could do Discord, MeWe, and sometimes my email. So I spent a week doing that. Um, I was reading. I have I have a 1 terabyte external hard drive that I have full of PDFs. So we were doing that. And so when the internet came back on through CalNet, I'll be going along and it'll just suddenly cut out. And yesterday, when I was on Odin's show, it just kept flickering at me where everybody was freezing. And that's why I told you at the beginning of the show, my internet's been fritzy. So
Well,
if
it hasn't cut out once, at least that I've seen.
I've seen flickers, but it hasn't gone out. So, but I'm not really talking about what I normally do either. um, yeah. I'm letting people know that I am in touch with consensus reality. People need to be reminded of that once in a while. And I'm also sharing my co-hosts on the network with my audience because you guys are good. You do good work.
Thank you. I work very
I've
hard to. That's why I only do the one show. I tried to do a bunch, but we stopped the daily for a while till after this cycle gets through, and I've got all the shows. I've still been doing them. They're not up on the air. They're on my sites where people can go see them, but I'm not actively broadcasting live when I normally do. I've been putting all my effort into making these last um 8 shows the bomb, and I want to
yeah.
lead into the next year with, because this is going to be a blast. I finally got my dream, and that's a co-host. I wanted someone to be able to bounce ideas off of. It's just nice to have someone else there that is.
Oh, I know. I have this thing where it's like I need to be talking to someone. you know, there, I think there's only been once, the first one, that I didn't have a guest.
Mm.
And Odin stood in and interacted with me.
No, I did it. I didn't start doing guests till 6 months ago. Up till that point, and I never ran out of stuff to talk about. I've got a lot of research done. So all the years from 2015 up till 2020, I never had a guest on because they have a bad habit of not showing up when they say they're going to do it. And
I've had that once.
well, I had a pretty big one on Tuesday, so we got thrown into it with I'm glad Chris was there. I
Yeah.
mean, that basically saved my show because didn't set up for a 3-hour show because I was going to have 4 guests on. And when 1 out of 5 shows up,
Well, I'm scheduled on your show this Tuesday,
yep,
and I will be there.
cool. So get
So
ready. It's 3 hours. So
3 hours. 3 hours wears me out, but I did a 6-hour one last Thursday. So,
oh, well,
well,
good.
no, it wasn't last Thursday. It was the Thursday before Halloween. And by the end, I was like, somebody shoot me, please. I was so tired. Lou didn't even ask me. Oh, Lou's my partner. Lou didn't even ask me. He just heated dinner and brought me a plate. I didn't even have to get out of my chair.
That's good.
Good man.
But
I'm glad I've
we'll
got
have
him.
a lot to talk about Tuesday because I will look up. I have my reference notes I can go back on. I will look up what we were talking about earlier, so I'll have
Okay.
the actual answer for you on Tuesday. I've written
Awesome.
it. I've gone through. First of all, I did the Bible. I researched the Bible cover to cover, including all 40 books that are not in the Bible. Everything. So
Awesome.
and I made notes throughout that. That made me a spiritual person. I got rid of religion after that study. I'm only spiritual
Yeah.
now. And and then I did the same thing with the government. Is I went through each branch. I looked up years and years worth of executive orders all the way back to Kennedy and read every single one. And let me tell you, some of them briefs are long.
Yeah,
And
they are.
Studied who can become president in what situation, all the way down to the last person. What would happen if, like, we got hit? Like, take St. Louis. All right, that's our main transportation hub in the United States. If you have a package, it will go through St. Louis at one point or another.
Yeah.
If that got hit by a 100-foot rock from outer space, it would wipe St. Louis off the map. Well, where does all the packages and where do all the trucks go if St. Louis is wiped off the map?
I can see that.
Right. Well,
we have 2 minutes.
Oh, wow. My clock's wrong. Okay.
Tell my computer.
Okay. Not a problem. Blue Collar Politics is on every Tuesday from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can catch it at youtube.com /Thomas77 Fry, or you can catch it on the Global Enlightenment Radio Network channel, any one of their YouTubes or Facebooks or my Facebook, D Live, everywhere. Anchor, Spreaker, you name it, we're there. Periscope, Twitter, all over the place. So, and you will be my guest on Tuesday.
Yes.
And I will talk to you between now and then. So, because I use a different system, so we'll get you set up to where you're comfortable, and we'll test it before so you're comfortable with it. Okay.
Cool.
And thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. We had set this up several weeks ago, before before the trouble hit.
Yes. So I'm glad to
I'm
be here.
thank you so much for coming. And Odin, you want to say anything?
No, I'm good.
Yep.
Oh,
Hey, Katie.
hi, Katie.
Hi.
So, anyway,
All right, I'll see you on Tuesday.
okay, bye bye.
Bye.